Poof! Top four of the Premier League. I don't know if we could say like Chelsea. Are they on the top four of the Premier League talk, Breton?
Not right now.
Ooh,
Not right now. No,
expectations.
absolutely not.
I need to fix them.
The incomings have not been incoming, if you know what I mean. So obviously Enzo, obviously Madueke. I mean, you've got a lot of players that they're hopefully gelling right now. They're all getting together, but the offloading continues, right? And we'll talk about the offloads in a second. But I think the most interesting thing that has happened in the last week with Chelsea has been their acquisition of a majority of Strasbourg in Ligue 1. And they have kicked out their current boss, and they have instituted Patrick Vieira, Arsenal legend Patrick Vieira, as their boss to hopefully build kind of a, what's the right word? A proxy for their transfer policy where they can send some young players. So guys like Angelo Gabriel, who they have not announced yet, but might announce in the near future, they might send them there, kind of like what Manchester City did with Troyes, which is they're now relegated in League 2. So it's really, really interesting to get a guy that literally is a Gunner legend, a French national team legend, was recently the boss of Crystal Palace. It went well for a smidgen and then didn't go well, so much. So it's really, really interesting to see how they're going to kind of build an extension of what Chelsea's going to do. But none of that, all of that, I should say, pales in comparison to the work that still needs to be done on Chelsea's roster.
Completely agree.
You got him out. Where's the incomings? Right?
Agree.
And I'm sure you've got a list. Who's next? Who's coming in?
I want to mention an incoming related to what you're saying about Strasbourg. Is they sign Angelo from Sanch, and they're gonna loan him out straight away to Strasbourg. And I think that's what Todd Boehly wants. He doesn't want a problem of who's gonna be my striker in the future. No, he wants his striker developing at Strasbourg or at any other Chelsea group team, okay? And that's what Red Bull Salzburg seems to be doing, and we're mentioning more forwards, okay, about Red Bull Salzburg and RB Leipzig. But talking about Chelsea, I'm a big believer of Pochettino at Chelsea. Maybe not to win the Premier League, but definitely to leave one day as a much better team than what he comes from, okay? He just arrives, and Chelsea is a mess. And I believe when Pochettino leaves, it won't be a mess. It will be a top four established team because that's what he does in rebuilds. Tottenham looked much better. Southampton looked much better after he left. And I think this team needs a man like him, okay? Because Pochettino, in a team that isn't full of stars, in a team that's very ambitious, in a team that wants to prove themselves, very different from PSG, he'll succeed. And this Chelsea team has big doubts. And again, the biggest problem of Chelsea right now is to convince the whole entire world that they're a top four team, because it's unexpected what's going to happen to them in the future. But structure is happening. A rebuild is happening. Lukaku might be leaving for like 37 to 35 million. I know it's contingent towards the Vlahovic deal. If Vlahovic doesn't leave Juve doesn't get Lukaku. That's what's being talked right now. So Lukaku, a Vlahovic replacement at Juve. But my point, what I really want to say about this is we're seeing change at Chelsea. They're addressing their problems, in my view, and they need a total locker room shape. Lampard says there were too many people there, and the culture wasn't the same from when I was there. Frank Lampard. And he wasn't the best manager at Chelsea, but he got a top four. He got a top four, okay, with a team of Chelsea that then managed to win the Champions League with Tuchel. So they didn't need another shakeup. But I like to see the news about Cherki, because I think Ryan Cherki, he might not be a Ligue 1 winner like Hazard was at Lille, a very established player when he leaves Ligue 1. But Ryan Cherki definitely resembles a lot the style of play of Hazard and the talent. He can create a big impact if he is trusted upon big time. Nkunku, Cherki, Noni Madueke, Mudryk, exciting names and very objective in terms of goals, these type of players. Fast, flair, objective, talented. That's what they want. So I like that move if that happens. So
well, but Cherki coming in again doesn't address the biggest issue, and it still doesn't. So get the striker in first. You've got Christopher Nkunku, right? Who's going to play your shadow striker? He's going to play your whatever up there. Ryan Cherki, I think, is just a surplus. And to be honest, I don't know how well Cherky would actually transition to the Premier League. I mean, he might wind up being more Ben Arfa than he winds up being Aiden Hazard.
Well, at Newcastle.
As silky. Yeah, well, that's true. That is true.
Never forget.
Ben Arfa had his moment. Ben Arfa, exactly. But Ryan Cherky, I think he also has injury issues that I've been concerned about. I mean, I think it's 2 big injuries in the last 2 years, which happens as you grow. But there is no doubting his insane, immense talent on the ball. The issue is it just feels a little bit more like collection for collection's sake instead of actually addressing the issues. You mentioned that they're being objective about it. You mentioned that they're actually trying to hit goals and trying to fill the roles. I don't see it just yet because that striker position is still not upgraded. And Nicholas Jackson and some of these others,
it's upgraded.
Who's coming from Broha.
It's upgraded. I think Nicholas Jackson is better than any option they had last season, in my point of view.
But not top 4 upgraded.
I agree with that. But like, if we see Newcastle, if we see Arsenal, Liverpool, United, I think they should be like focusing on maybe like 5th, 6th. I think it's more realistic for Chelsea fans to think towards that. But I think big time too. Like this, I don't know, but it's interesting.
Let's be honest, Alex. There is no way but up off of last season. There is no way but up. I think most people or most Chelsea supporters out there are saying, top 6. They I don't know actually. I mean, they might snap back and just kind of dismiss last year as an outlier. But to be honest, the way I look at this, from a top down type of situation, is you mentioned that they were in disarray or something. Frank Lampard wasn't the greatest, and yet they wound up winning the Champions League. That might have been the outlier, but then you say that Chelsea's a mess, and there's not even 12 to 16 months that separate those two, right? From when we were seeing them lift the trophy to then when we were labeling them as an absolute mess. So it's one of those things where, like, you can't go back in time, obviously, but revisionist history in that they tried to orchestrate a type of a squad refresh that Guardiola type orchestrated perfectly, almost flawlessly, except they won the Champions League and then they tried to refresh the squad and they literally did horrendously at doing so. They've had 4 managers in how many years?
I think it's
4 years?
more the Todd Boehly investment.
Right?
I think that was the big variable difference.
The narrative was that Chelsea was an absolute trash heap, and it absolutely was not. But now you're so far in the thick of this squad refresh. It's not even a squad refresh. It's buying a whole new squad, essentially. And it has to continue. So I don't know. I mean, right now, it's hard not to just watch them and wonder how are there not more incomings at this moment in time.
I clearly stated, I think Pochettino starts a mess, but I think he'll be leaving without being a mess. Chelsea. Yeah. Okay? I think they're going to fix a lot of their problems this season. Okay? Because a lot of problems are being addressed, and I think they're signing well. Yeah. I think Enzo Fernandez was a one-shot, one deal, has to happen now because of all the interest internationally for Enzo Fernandez. Maybe even a Real Madrid. If he was like 20 million cheaper than Jude Bellingham, maybe Real Madrid would have gone for Enzo Fernandez. But the truth is, Levi Colville. That is the most important deal, in my view, that Chelsea needs to lock in. They have to get Levi Colville next to Enzo in the future, next to Nodi Madueke, next to Mudryk. They need an English starter, an identity of Colban at Chelsea next to Reece James too. They need these type of players. And Mason Mount leaving, that's a big shot in the gut for Chelsea. But if they have Reece James and Levi Colville going up, they still have an identity at Colban and returning to John Terry back to Chelsea.